Hello, everybody. This is Monica Larner, the Italian reviewer for The Wine Advocate. And welcome to another edition of the Italian Wine Series. Today we will be speaking with Lamberto Frescobaldi, one of the leading producers of Tuscany and indeed of Italy. And it should be a fascinating time to kind of explore the varied holdings of the Frescobaldi family and to kind of understand their winemaking philosophy and to get deeper into the Frescobaldi soul. So without further ado, let me just add on Lamberto Frescobaldi. Get him here connected. I see a lot of people joining in, and thank you so much for there he is. Hello. Buongiorno, Lamberto.
Buongiorno, Monica. Come stai? How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm very good. It's nice and warm. So a great September, and a great September is good stuff for us.
It's a good start.
It's a good moment for all the wine producers. So I think we can have in difficult times we can have a smile.
Well, are you already harvesting? Have you already pulled some grapes off the vine?
Yes, indeed. We have already began. We have already began with some Pinot Noir, with some Chardonnay and some Pinot Grigio in different estates where we are located. And I don't know, there is always something very exciting every time you get to the new harvest. It's like beginning always a new life. So
it's a new year, a new leaf, as they say. A new
year.
And hopefully a new leaf that will bring a lot of optimism and joy to the world, which is what wine is supposed to do, especially in these difficult times, no?
Yes, indeed, you're right. We really need a lot of good karma, good positive attitude, positive atmosphere, because we need to go back and grab our life back again.
Yeah. So speaking of grabbing our life back again, Lamberto, just to start off, how have you been living these past 6-8 months? How has it been from your point of view?
But it has been very different. First of all, I was used to travel a lot. As a matter of fact, in January, I flew to the States. Then I was in north of Europe, then I was in Russia, then again in February I flew back to the States. I remember I went to Chicago because February Chicago is the right moment to be there. It's nice and cool. Then I was in Miami, then here and there. Then I came back home beginning of March, and the beginning of March was really a turning point. I remember when the 8th of March, our Prime Minister said to us, you guys must stay at home. And so that was quite of a shocking time. And actually I stayed at home, like everybody had to do, for 2 weeks. Then those 2 weeks, then actually we are wine producers. So we have the vineyards out there, so we actually had the permission to work out in the vineyards, and we went on a bottling plant because Italy locked it down before the others. So actually it was fun because people from around the world were telling us what is happening in Italy.
What's going on, yeah.
Yeah, what's going on there? And you guys are always, Italians like to take a rest and enjoy it. So they were smiling about us. Instead, then unfortunately became very serious also in other places of the world. But March went through quite dramatically at the beginning of the first 2 weeks, and then you know what? The police was around, and everybody was looking at you, and you could not really leave home. You could walk around. My dog Brunello, he was fed up of walking around with my wife, with my kids that they were at home, and you could.
Everybody took him for a walk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
He
yeah.
could. He was, staying in the sun. Take it easy now, guys. You could leave home 200 meters, so 600 feet away from home. You could get, only 600 feet away. So it was quite I had my car. I had nice and clean. I used to wear a jacket and a tie, and I was driving to the winery. I was never ever stopped. Police looked at me. They thought I was maybe a doctor going to the hospital.
So that
They
was
never
the trick.
stopped me. But
You're
then
being well-dressed
Saturday and
Italian,
Sunday,
right?
we always because it was beautiful. I lived downtown Florence in this home where my uncles live. My father also. We were getting together every evening, having a glass of wine in the garden. So in a family group, cooking pizza on Sunday and having like a picnic on the garden of our home here in Florence. And then I went around and actually we planted almost 100 acres during that time. So it was quite of a busy time. And I must say that thanks God that we are into the wine business, because we could actually work and we could actually go and visit the places where we were pruning, and then spring came around and we had to do bud selecting and then selecting the cane. And life went through.
Nature went forward, right?
Yeah, of course, I have never took a plane any longer since those days, and I miss coming to the States. I miss going to visit people and to present what we're doing, because we've been doing a lot of things this year. So there's always something to update our clients and our friends, because I must say we have a lot of friends. Who is in the wine business has a lot of friends out there.
Right, and a lot of international friends, and it's
exactly.
Cabin fever just kind of set in quickly. I was like, oh, this is fine. Working from home is great. Everything is great. And then suddenly one day I just woke up and said, God, I miss going out, and I miss it so much. It's getting to be long now.
A lot of people tell me, working at home, smart. Working. I really cannot stand that. I think that we are not meant to stay alone. We are meant to stay together, have a cup of coffee, exchange ideas. Because when you go to the office, of course you think about the business, but then there's also a moment where you speak about a number of things. And then it's about friendship, it's about ideas, it's about doing
That's what
mistakes.
this is about. Vino. That's what.
Vino. I have plenty of bottles here with me, and never leave home without bottles. Gorgona, and then a newly Leonia that just came from the fridge. I'm going to open this.
Oh, fantastic.
Fantastic. No, never leave home without. But the beauty about wine is to share it. So you have to be with family and friends, but better with friends.
Well said, Lamberto. Well said. So listen, tell us a little bit about. We already have a lot of people coming in. I saw somebody from Korea, hello, Brazil, India, from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining us. And if anybody has any questions at any point, just type it in and we'll try to get to it. Let's just start off simply, Lamberto. You have an important family for the history of Italy and of Tuscany, and of course in the winemaking context. Can you give us kind of a brief history of Frescobaldi? It's difficult, big task.
We will go very, very quickly. So Frescobaldi is a Florentine family. We've been living in Florence since the 1000. Yeah, 1000. So it's 1,000 years ago. It looks like that they showed up from Germany. They moved to the area of Florence, and then they began their business on the river, because Florence is cut into by the River Arno, and then from there, around the 1300, they began producing wine. They started to buy land, and then from buying one estate, they went on, and they bought more land and more estates. There were bankers. For a number of centuries, there were bankers. Pretty much they start talking about Frescobaldi around in the town of Florence. They bought where we live, the location where our house is yet now here in the 1100. In 1252, an ancestor of mine, Lamberto, built one of the first bridges over the River Arno, next to the Ponte Vecchio. And so then there were traders, bankers, as many other families of Florence, they became important bankers. And then from banking, they were investing their money in land and producing, of course, wine, but also other food, like wheat and olive oil. And then from bankers, we became farmers. I don't know if that was right or not, but that is what we are now. We have a number of estates, 8 these days, around Tuscany, and we try to cover many different niches of Tuscany. Monica, you know Tuscany very well. You've been driving your red Mini Miner around Tuscany.
With Capo the dog.
Exactly, and all these windy curves and hills and valleys, different exposures. So Tuscany is actually very, it's quite a unique place because we have from the mountains with snow to the sea where we bathe. So we can have vineyards in very cool areas, and we can have vineyards down to the sea with more pleasant temperatures on sandy soils, like in Bolgheri, down to instead Maremma, where there is more of schist soil, where we can do great Syrah and Vermentino. So we can then, of course, Glasgow. Then we have to name Montalcino. So here and there, this is the important thing that we've been trying to pursue, that each location is able to do something unique. Something good, hopefully, but something unique, definitely. So, as you very well know, and also who loves following, you guys love the uniqueness and the diversities about wine. So, when a wine is able to talk to you and tell you how different it is from another wine that is produced probably with the same variety, but 10, 15 miles away, where there is different kind of soil, different kind of exposure. This is the fun thing about wine. Is wine, you never get bored on opening wines, and I think you always are tempted to reach something that you will never reach. But it's fun, this endless chasing about history, about know-how, about people.
Yeah, it comes down to storytelling in the end, because every grape tells the story of its surroundings and of its people and of its culture. And the beautiful thing about Italian wine is that it's so incredibly varied, and the biodiversity is so great that you get so many more stories. So as a journalist, this is particularly exciting for me because every time you go to a new vineyard, there's a whole new world to discover and explore. And I very much like the idea of your ancestor building a bridge, because if you use the bridge as a metaphor, one thing that I always notice about the Frescobaldi portfolio is that you do have bridges, as you said, from all these very different parts of Tuscany, going from high altitude wines in, Pomino, all the way down to the island of Gorgona, which is a tiny little Mediterranean island with kind of all this marine breeze, salty air and whatnot. Exactly. So let's start to you have, as you said, 8 different estates and quite a big portfolio that kind of becomes a full expression of Tuscany with all those bridges that we described. Let's start off maybe on the high altitude
Yeah.
and maybe you can describe some of the wines. I mean, obviously, a wine like Nipozzano from the
Yeah.
Chianti Rufina appellation is one of the most classic brands that your family represents. And it's a wine that's opened many doors to foreign export markets, introducing Sangiovese. So maybe we can start with some of the projects in this area and discuss what different projects, what different products you have, and a little bit about the vineyards too.
Yeah, sure. Nipozzano is for me a little bit my hometown. I grew up next to Nipozzano, so really know every corner of that estate. So location-wise, we are east of Florence, roughly 20 miles east of Florence, and we start to be fairly, as you said, fairly altitude. We have some vineyards, even they are more altitude, but location-wise, we are a little bit more in the south, like the one in Gaiolin Chianti. So Nipozzano is really it's considered to be very unique, cool area. During the winter, it's I can tell you it's nice and cold. Winters are quite long, but summers are also long and dry and warm during the day and cooler during the night. So you have this nice balance between warm and cool nights, and that has a great beneficial on this variety that is the most planted variety in Italy is Sangiovese, and is the most planted variety in Tuscany. Sangiovese is a tricky variety because it's a generous variety. It produces a lot, and when it produces a lot, produces also wine that sometimes are simple, are very much everyday wines. But at the same time, if you are in that kind of location where you have those kind of soils where they're very well drained, the clusters they tend to become smaller, the berries tend to become smaller, and the moment of ripening tends to become later in the season. When the season it starts to have even more differences between warm day and cool nights. So pushing the harvest at mid-September, beginning of October, sometimes at the end of October. So that starts to make wines that are very interesting. And Monica, you know very well that we in Tuscany are very difficult people, and we are difficult in the sense that we love Sangiovese, but we never write the word Sangiovese in our labels. Because in Chianti Rufina, where is Nipozzano, we talk about Chianti Rufina, we talk about Nipozzano, but we never talk about the variety. In Chianti Classico, we talk about the location, where we are, but we never talk about Sangiovese. We get to Montalcino, Brunello di Montalcino is 100% Sangiovese, but we never talk about Sangiovese. So we talk about specific location. That is the great thing. Nipozzano, as I said, is a place where there is a fairly long, dry summer, and that allows the Sangiovese to struggle. The berries become a little bit smaller, and then you do wine that have quite tannic when they're young, but then when you age them for at least 2 years in cask, the tannins become much more smoother, and it becomes a joy your palate between freshness and complexity, but always leaving your palate nice and clean and nice and ready to have a second sip. We in Italy never want wine by the glass, we want wine by the bottle.
It's a good philosophy for life. But Sangiovese, it prefers to have a longer growing season, and that is also what aids in developing its complexity and its depth, you know. And the Chianti Rufina area is kind of off to the side, you know, in a way, because you have this big, you know, sun of Chianti Classico in the middle of Tuscany and smaller satellite appellations. But it's quite distinctive because the even the color of the light there is a little different. It's a little bluer. It's a little bit darker. It's wild, and there's so much green, so
It's
much,
true.
thick forest and whatnot. And the mountains kind of shoot up right behind Chianti Rufina, kind of protecting the wine production area. So it's really a
And, and,
fascinating
and we are also a small community because we are 22 producers in
producer.
Chianti Rufina. So that's quite unique and quite nice because it's a small community. We know each other, all of us, very well. We get together. We're actually planning to do a project all together that hopefully we're going to be ready in a couple of years. So it's really a small, nice community, and I always encourage restaurants to have a little part of their wine list dedicated to maybe 3 or 4 SKUs from Rufina that will really give even a different depth at the wine list of the restaurant.
Yeah, the wines are a little bit crisper, more lifted, a lot of floral aromas.
Very full.
Very floral, and even a little bit lighter in color and more, more vertical in approach, more kind of, a very gentle and
Yeah.
very elegant.
And they have an amazing ability to age. We at Nipozzano, we have a collection that goes back to 1864 that I have never opened, but I've opened bottles at the beginning of the 1900.
When was the first vintage? When did it start? When did you start?
But the production of wine in Nipozzano goes back to medieval time. So there are cellars. The cellars in the castle were built at the time of the 1200s. So it's really an ancient place. We have been lucky enough to find some bottles of Nipozzano that go back to mid 1800, when there is really a new vision of wine that is not only locally drunk or shipped in cask or in big, pretty much in barrels as it was done before. And instead, around 1800, mid 1800, glassware starts to become even more, let's say, less expensive, and then the use of cork. That, of course, it's something that changed totally the world of wine. And also, Nipozzano was of one of my ancestors called Leonia Albizzi, from the family Albizzi. She came from France, and she inherited this estate from another family in 1850, and she came from Burgundy. So with a great experience of producing wine and shipping wine. So she arrived here, and she really began. It was a lady that she married, a Frescobaldi, Angelo Frescobaldi, and with a very strong French attitude, and then the world for Nipozzano, as it is now, really began with her.
That's fantastic. Again, if anybody has any questions, please jump in and ask them, and we'll try to get to them. So, Lamberto, going from Chianti Rufina, let's go to Gaiolin Chianti, where you have I would say, yeah, you have the bottle. Do you have the Perano there? Yes.
I have the Rialzi.
Yes, which is the
Gran Selezione.
The single vineyard, yeah. So let's talk about that property, because that's very exciting. You purchased this property more recently, right? And if you look at the timeline of Frescobaldi, it's probably your newest estate, and it fills an important identity now, because of course it represents Chianti Classico, a wine region that Frescobaldi must be operating in, because obviously, to represent Tuscany, that's probably the most important appellation. And you had looked for a property for a long time, and you were very concerned about finding the right property, and you settled on a gorgeous estate that I've had the pleasure of photographing and looking at from, admiring from every point of view, and it is stunning. And you bought that, and so now we have this kind of exciting new chapter. So, and you chose Gaiolin Chianti, which is one of the more, a little bit of a cooler site within the appellation, wines that tend to go, again, more towards the elegant and the lifted and the graceful. So there's a lot to talk about here. Let's talk about Tenuta Perà.
It has been really searching for love for many years. Chianti Classico is a place that you cannot not fall in love with, but then I was never able to really find, or maybe the person or the lady I was finding, she was not really falling in love with me, because land is like a lady or a boy, it depends from how you see it.
It's a love story, right? A love story.
And so sometimes it was too tall, sometimes it was too short, sometimes it was never right. But it was never right because the magic of love was not bursting. And then this place instead, I knew this place, and I had a great opportunity to jump in 2014. And we did the first harvest in 2014. And then with 2015, our second harvest there, we actually waited. And that is the first harvest that we were able to go to bottle. Because the 2014, we just understood what was going on. And with 2015, by the way, an amazing harvest in the area, we started producing our wines. And so times goes by very quickly. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. This is our seventh harvest.
Already your seventh, wow.
Oh, wow. So time flies. When you came, the cellar was a little bit of a mess, but now it's beautiful, it's clean, it's done, it's finished.
You were in the final phases of construction where you already had everything
but
laid out. You were already making wine, because that was the priority, was to make sure that the cellar room was functional, the fermentation area. And then since I have been there, you've added on a hospitality area.
Hospitality, we have a great restaurant, we call it Osteria. And so we're having terrific fun. When you have fun, you also are able to concentrate on your details. And wine, great wine is about details. If when you start not sleeping at night, sometimes you start missing those details that they are important to have to produce a great wine. And great wine is really made of tiny details, and also ability to take some risk. Take some risk when it's time to harvest. Sometimes the fruit is almost ready, and then you look at the weather forecast, and it tells you that maybe tomorrow there's going to be a shower. Oh my God! So you're there. What shall we do? Shall we pick it or not pick it? No? Okay, let's wait. Let's flip a coin. Let's take some risk again. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe the weather forecast is wrong. So you wake up and there you have some sun again, and there that's the magic. So you gain one day extra of your fruit in the plant, and you took a risk. But sometimes actually it rains, and so you took a risk, and so you have to go there, take some leaf out, so the wind tries to dry your fruit again. So it's really something. Our job is about taking risk. But taking it with joy, with really thinking that you're doing the right thing. And when everything goes together, here we are. And Perano, everything was right. We've been since you came, because the previous owner did what a lot of people have done. Also, I myself have done. That sometimes you go to an estate and you tend to plant a lot of different wine varieties. That also we found that in Perano, and we've been ripping out the Cabernet Sauvignon, that we are there in a cool place, so the Cabernet Sauvignon had no reason whatsoever to be there. We've been pulling out other red varieties, like there was niches of Pinot Noir. Why the hell is there? And so planting back again 100% Sangiovese, because that is really what makes the difference there at that location. And I couldn't. I'm really brutally in love with Perano and with the area.
Well, it's a gorgeous, you know, and it's also strongly marked by these, you know, the white rocks of the vineyard, the Albarese soils, you know, and
those vineyards that are very, very steep. They get the sun all day. They are very high in elevation. It's around 1,500 feet on sea level.
That's like 450 meters, no?
450 meters, around 500, 520.
Even 500.
So that also, when we talk about global warming, there we are up in elevation. So I think we have some time to enjoy those cooler climates.
More of a buffer.
Exactly, we have a buffer there. And it's true, we have to start thinking about that. So up for now, also as with the cooler climate, and although when you have some showers, but the humidity is very low there, and so the fruit, you can stay there, you can hang it in your vineyards, and then you can pick it later in the season. And we've always been doing very, very unique, very special wines.
So somebody's asking, the video will be saved just as soon as I finish. If I can post it immediately up to the site, it'll go up. Sometimes we have to wait a little bit of time so the office in Singapore posts the video, but usually I'm able to do it, hopefully. We also had a question, Lamberto, about vintages, and this is something I specifically wanted to talk to when we get to talk about your next group of estates or estates in Montalcino. But the question was, and let's use it also for Chianti Classico and Brunello di Montalcino, in terms of your favorite vintages, obviously 2016 coming up, everybody's really waiting for this, but can you give us an idea of the personalities and the expectations of 2016 against 2018, another classic vintage that has a lot of people very excited?
So never trust a winemaker, because he's going to always tell you about the beauty about everything. But said that, yeah, we have 2016 coming around with the greatest 2016. What is about 2016 beautiful is those dry, cool nights and sunny days. So that for Sangiovese, that tends to have a fairly large berry and thin skin, having dry climate allows the berry not to crack. Right. Because sometimes that is the issue about Sangiovese. When there is too much humidity or too much rain and heat, it cracks. When it cracks, mold comes in, and you have to start praying, because you have to start do all those selections that they are beneficial for the quality, but you will never reach the top quality that you are looking at. So 2016 is those vintages that you dream about, and there it is. 2017, because in between with 2017 and 2018, 2016 and 2018, there's a 2017 very much interesting. I love the power of 2017. 2017 was a very hot vintage, but very dry at the same time. And again, for Sangiovese, it's a great thing, because the Sangiovese, the berry becomes smaller. Sometimes when you have very well-drained soil, when you're planting your vineyards in sandy soil, that it can be a little bit of a problem, because the water leaves too quickly, and so the tannins become a little bit too aggressive.
Right.
But
Yeah. There's a
if you
phenolic
have,
ripeness. Yeah.
if you have a mixture with good amount of clay, and you know that in Tuscany there is a lot of clay, because when you drive around and you can be easily stuck with your car out in the vineyards. I think it has happened to everybody, anybody. That clay retains water, and that helps the vineyard to go on also in vintages like 2017. So 2017, the wine has a good power, a little bit less freshness, but very good power, and the tannins actually are nice and smooth and round. They fill up your mouth. 2018 is a little bit in between 2017 and 2016. So you have a little bit more of the elegance, but yet a good power. Yeah, in 2018, I can't wait to taste it together with you and who is following us, because has what I like about 2018 compared to 2016. 2016, you have to be a little bit younger. Almost you have to put a nice clean shirt, and you have to, because 2016 is a wine that stirs you quite severely, because it's a wine that you can love now, but you will love it even greater in some years from now. Really has an amazing ability to age. 2018 is a little bit again. Serious person, but a little bit smiling, a little bit more to you, and has that ability to embrace you a little bit more with gentleness. So great wine to drink when he's young, and of course when he ages, but terrific when it's going to be the first 5 years from when it's offered to you. So this is again is the beauty about who loves wine, is to never, if you find wines vintage after vintages that they all look alike,
right? Then
how sad it is. So
yeah,
it
what's
that,
right?
it's sad. It means that the winemaker has been overpowering the location, overdoing a number of things, and doing a recipe. Instead, a great wine is not a recipe. Is to interpretate what nature is giving you.
It's a very good point, that the winemaker should not overpower their territory. And this is something that we're seeing more and more, expressions of, as we look through your portfolio, especially of the individual territories. I'm going to go to Montalcino next, where you have the Castelgiocondo estate. And you also have another project called the Luce that makes Brunello. Yes, yeah. And let's talk a little bit about Montalcino. So Montalcino is very exciting. We have the 2015 vintages on the market now, because in Montalcino was released 5 years after the harvest. So it's a wine that already comes to the market with a little bit of age on it. And next year we have the 2016 vintage to look forward to. Both 15 and 16 are excellent vintages, maybe a little bit different because 15 is even warmer still, a little bit more sunshine, a little bit more softness. And 16, as you so well described, is like that tight, clean shirt. Everything is kind of rigid and perfectly ironed out and very pristine and focused. So, but Sangiovese reacts very differently in Montalcino. It's, kind of a different interpretation. Let's talk a little bit about the differences in farming between Chianti Classico and Montalcino, and get into the history a little bit of Castelgiocondo.
The estate of Castelgiocondo is on the south side of Montalcino. Montalcino is a ridge. There are estates that they are facing north, east, and southwest. These three locations, pretty much, they always do wines that are very, very charming and very interesting and very have great ability to age. So each location has their own particularity, and so I think that you have to just surf through the area to really find what it fits you the best palate. San Montalcino and Castelgiocondo in our estate since now a long time. We are in the south part of Montalcino, so we get a good amount of sun. We get also the winds that they do come from the sea, that is 60 kilometers, so it's 45 miles away. But we get the nice breeze in the afternoon that dries up even more nicely the area. So one thing, again, different from Chianti Classico in Perano and Montalcino is the temperatures. Temperatures during the day, Montalcino actually has even higher temperatures, but then has this nice wind, but it's a fairly hot wind because the wind that comes from the sea is cool, but then it warms up and so takes out every possible drop of water. So the area becomes nice and very nice and dry. But the Sangiovese, as we said, big berry, deep roots, a good amount of clay in the soil. The water is never an issue in Montalcino, but you need to keep your soil rip. You cannot do have cover crop pulls out too much water, too much humidity, so you have to keep
more aerated
your soil ripped so you don't lose water in the soils. And then we must also have small amount of fruit per plant. We have nice high density, nice green part, so number of leaves is very important, how you trim your leaves. And then also there you need to have patience. You have to be patient. Montalcino bud break happens quite later in the season because Montalcino is quite cold, it's high elevation. Next to Montalcino there's this mountain called Montamiata where you have the ski resort. So people from Siena, they ski there. So this just to tell you that winter is cold, you have snow, and so bud break is later. So when bud break is later, then you're going to have to pick later. And this is the magic of the Sangiovese there, that there we call it Brunello. Brunello means Sangiovese locally. And
even darker.
And so, as you said, 5 years. You actually had the bottle of the Riserva, the single vineyard, the blue one is a single vineyard.
Right, the
and,
Ripa Convento.
And that is 6 years in your cellar prior to
release.
So you have the Riserva, and I have the 2015 Castelgiocondo. And Castelgiocondo, by the way, what does it mean, Castelgiocondo? Giocondo means gioia, happiness. So I guess that people that were coming from Maremma, where in the past there was malaria and was humid, and they were coming away from Maremma, and they were starting to go up the hills where no mosquitoes were. I guess it was a joy. On Castelgiocondo was a joy to get there to higher elevation, cooler climate, and great place to make wine. And I have great memories. I started to go there when I was 11 years old in the 70s, 1974, and there was a person that was working for us. He had a bug, the Volkswagen bug, and I was taking this car. I was 11 years old, taking the car and driving around all day until my father and this manager were looking at the vineyards, and I was getting back at the winery when the tank was empty, and because the winery is nice and big, it's over 2,400 acres.
Wow!
All the estate, so many miles of driving around, and then from those miles driving around, the virus, because this is the time of virus, but the virus of wine got into my body, and I guess that never left me.
From Montalcino. No, it's true that your estate it's kind of on the, I guess, on the first wave of the tallest part of the southern side of the Appalachians. So it has an open face of vineyards that, as you described, almost are a direct line to the Tuscan coast. And that's where that dryness comes in. And, this warmth, this kind of basin of warmth is created there. So moving from beautiful Montalcino, going more down towards the Tuscan coast, you guys also have a fun wine, a really fun little wine, which is this rosé with a little bit of Vermentino in it. Yeah, this is a wine that's really, now that we have the hot months here, for summer sipping and whatnot.
This is a beautiful project, Allier. It's a rosé. We're making it since now 8 years. We had such a success that the first years we could only reserve it to the Italian market, and then slowly but surely we increased our capacity. And this wine is made with Vermentino and Syrah. Actually, more Syrah than Vermentino.
Right.
Syrah is picked a little bit earlier. It gives us this beautiful, very light color, and the Vermentino it gives the freshness and also the aromatities. This wine, it really opens the wine, and it becomes floral, and has been a lovely project, understanding better what we had to do in the area. Because initially, when we arrived there at the end of the 90s, we were ready to do those kind of red wines that they are really bold and strong and
taller shoulder,
powerful,
bigger, bolder,
and really doing like this, and here we are, and then we understood that people were not looking for that kind of wines any longer. Maybe we arrived late, maybe I don't know what, but that Syrah, instead of picking it very late in the season, going to new barrels, do saignée, do wines even more thick, bigger, and then at a certain moment we understood that those bottles were like big boys, that they were only going to the gym, big muscles, but the brain was a little bit shrinking, and so we needed to get around from that. Muscles are important, but then also the story, the brain has to be there.
Right.
And so here we are, the Syrah, we started to say, wait a second, what Syrah gives to you is that beautiful peppery aroma that intrigues you. Let's grab that. Let's don't missing it by picking the grapes too late. And then also a little bit of Vermentino, and here we are we came around with this beautiful wine, Lier, and then with the brother that right now is only sold in Italy because we run out every time of it, is the Aurea Gran Rosé, and that is, we actually here also we put a little bit some reserve wine, we do like a champagne, but this is a rosé, very pale, very complex, and they become, probably we understood what we had to do there, and that is what we're doing. And
I think it's a fascinating Syrah and Vermentino, because they're both very distinctive grapes. And again, you have, as you described, a little bit of the white pepper from the Syrah, that kind of crunchiness. And Vermentino always has it, it always has a very tonic, crisp, high energy level of, aromas. And so you get enormous freshness. And then the mouth feels a little bit softer. It's a little bit more, encompassing, but there's enormous freshness. So you get this great combination. It's a really fun wine.
There is a Vermentino that comes in the mouth because only Syrah is a little bit, sometimes it tends to be a little bit bonbon, a little bit too much, even though you pick it earlier. And instead, the Vermentino really cleans your palate, and it's white, and yet at the same time, it leaves this nice crispiness and freshness in your palate. I must always give credit to my friend Sasha Lishin, that is a great rosé producer in France. That he said to me, look, in France, on utilise roll, and roll is nothing else than Vermentino. So I suggest you to use a little bit of Vermentino in your rosé. Right. That was what we did. And so I always have to give credit to Sasha, to this easy little advice, but sometimes you have to be good enough to grab every good advice that is given to you.
We have a question of exactly where the Syrah is, where you have your Syrah exactly. Obviously, this is all, you asked the region, it's obviously Tuscany, but these vineyards are closer to the coast. So where are they precisely?
So we are, if you look at if you have a laptop, you go, you look at Tuscany, we're in the southern part of Tuscany, really in the toe of Tuscany. In front of us, there is like an island called Argentario, and we are inland, but we see the sea. We are 10 miles away, and that is where we are located. The area is called Morellino di Scansano, the area, so just south of Grosseto, and the town where we are is called Magliano in Toscana. So it's really in the toe of Tuscany, and if you ask me, did you have in mind to do rosé when you got there in 1998? No, but we understood when we were there. I think that one thing that we have to be, you have to listen. You have to listen at the place. And sometimes when you get to a place, don't rush too much planting vineyards, because when you start planting and you start to have your fruit, you will see that you've done some mistakes. So leave yourself some space to plant those vineyards, those varieties that they're going to do better. So when you get in a new area, you have to be how you say, humile.
Humble. Yeah.
Humble.
All right. So we have, okay. Before we have a question about COVID. We'll get to that later. But in terms of the wine up, yes, I see you're holding the bottle. From an intellectual point of view, this is perhaps one of my favorite wines in Italy. It is an incredible story. The packaging it has this kind of a wraparound, and then you open up the bottle and you have a map of if you can see it, the island of Gorgona there.
Yeah.
And you have this precious little wine that comes from Gorgona. And this is just, I mean, this is a mind-blowing story that Lamberto is going to tell us about. And as I said, it's really a very special product, a precious wine, a special product, and something that's worth discovering. So,
This is
tell us
something.
Who makes the wine, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. This is a very special location, unique. This is a prison. It's 20 miles off the coast of Tuscany, just in front of Livorno.
Prison. It's an entire prison. The island is a prison. It is it is a jail.
It is a jail. The island is a jail, so it's forbidden to go there, holiday or something. So it's a prison. It's a prison since 1863. So it's a long time. It's a prison. It's a prison, however, of people that have been in prison since a long time, but they are ready to leave. They're moving out. They're people that they have behaved properly in prison for the time.
They're reformed.
Stay.
They're at the end of their incarceration, right?
They're formed.
Right.
Exactly. They are these there. It's really there. And one of the biggest issue everywhere is to have people that when people go to prison, the thing is not to have them do a crime again after. And unfortunately, around the world, also US, Italy, France, whatever you call it, around 85% of the people do a crime again. So they go in and out from prison. That is a huge cost, is a huge cost for the community. It's a disaster for all of us. But here we go to the island. The island has a small vineyard. We manage the vineyard since 2012. We do wine. We hire the people. We pay them. They're in a payroll. So we pay them when they're going to stay with us for 2, 3, 4 years at the project, and then they leave. They actually are free people. When they're going to be free people, they will have some money in their pocket. Sometimes they have 20, 30, 40,000 euros in their pocket, and so they can actually go back to their life. They actually can become a good people. They misbehave. They've gone to prison. They have been rehabilitated. So this is what we're doing with this vineyard, and I must tell you, people really are getting fond in love with what they're doing, with taking care of the vineyard. We've been planting more vineyards. We've been when we so through the season, then we go to harvest. Very soon is going to be harvest. There we have a cellar. Of course, we teach them. We are there together. We are 4 of us that go to the island often, and so the wine becomes something really unique. It's a wine that has great taste of complexity, of sage, of the island, of the soul, but also of hope. This is a wine of hope. We're giving a second chance to people. That there are people that are not only giving a second chance to them, they're grabbing that second chance. Because if they misbehave, they're kicked out from the project like that. And I must tell you, I have stories that they give me goosebumps. This is not the right moment, but another time maybe we can have a little bit more time. But I can tell you that a bottle of wine can do amazing things.
Yeah, because it's the hardship of a life, and then this incredible scenario, this incredible backdrop on this island, off the Tuscan coast that is completely inaccessible to the public. And then here you have this kind of magical set of vineyards, difficult terrain too, right? Because it's not easy to farm on that island.
It's steep. It's very rocky because it was a volcano, so lots of rocks, and everything could be wrong there. But actually we're there, and the wine is good. The magic thing about that, the wine is really good. I was blown away the first harvest.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's extremely expressive, and it's a romantic wine too, because you can't help but think of the people who made it. So it's a wine that sparks your imagination of what the background story is. What crimes did they commit? What brought them to this to this point in their life where they're making Gorgora wine? It's incredible.
It happened. It happened. It only happened, and there we are. It was pretty, I must say, by chance, and we shake hands and we started working together, and there we began. I must say, the director of the island those days, a lady, Dottoressa Giampiccolo, was unique, I must say, as a person. And I remember when after a few months, she saw to me that my eyes were very much bright every time I was going to the island, and she said to me, "Mr. Frescobaldi, don't fall in love with this project." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because love sometimes ends, and we said we want you to keep it going. So look at the beneficial of this project." Right. And I said, "Yeah, but I need to fall in love with the project if we have to try to do something good and unique."
It's a
So
long-term relationship.
it's a long-term relationship.
Listen, Lamberto, we'll start to sign off, but there was one question somebody asked that I'll quickly get to before we say goodbye. And that is, briefly, what are your thoughts now with the COVID world, and it's a big question, but what are your perspectives in terms of Italian wine now that we are going through this this difficult time?
We went through a tremendous difficulties in especially March, April, and June. Then life started to come back. Of course, we're missing tourism. Italy is, if we don't have tourists, Italy is a very tough country. Italy is a beautiful place. We are missing something like presence of 200 million presence in Italy. So a lot of restaurants are really in big difficulties. So what can we do? We have to do our job properly. We have to think that this thing is going to end one day. We have to think positive. We actually have to raise the bar of quality even higher. So quality must grow because people, they will always ask for better, and great attention to details. COVID has been something that nobody would have ever thought about. Maybe Fleming or Ken Follett or Wilbur Smith with his books. I think not even them they could have ever. I sometimes when I see those movies that they talk about viruses, I have to change movie. I can't look at them any longer because we went through something bad.
Right.
But I'm also I think now positive. Maybe the worst is a little behind us, but we have to behave a certain way. We have to use masks. We have to maybe less hug. We love to hug. I love to shake hands. I love to look people into their eyes. We are very physical. I like to touch. I like to. I think that is what is our nature. But we have to little bit to change our habits in the near future. But the world is not finished. The world is not finished. We have to start thinking positive. We have to start thinking at building the world again. The bomb has gone through, but we have to think how we can build a better life for ourselves and for the future. I'm saying I'm positive. I have to think. I have to be positive. If not, I would shoot myself. I have to think positive, and I'm positive. I think that the worst is always behind us. A number of people now are actually treated properly. They don't need any longer to go to hospital, at least here in Italy. So things are much more under control. So let's look at the future with a little bit more of a smile, and hopefully soon jump on planes and start talking about the future, and the past is the past.
Well, as I'm seeing the comments, it says stay strong, positivity. So on that note, Lamberto, a big chin to you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a wonderful hour talking with you. We've learned so much.
Thank you, Monica.
So much.
Thank you to everybody. And have a great day, great evening, and always a glass with friends.
Benissimo. Grazie, Lamberto.
Ciao.
Ciao.